The general elections in the United Kingdom. Polls opened in the United Kingdom today with the opposition Labour Party being the heavy favourite to gain power and end 14 years of Conservative rule. The polls had opened at 7 a.m. and will close at 10 p.m. Meanwhile, exit polls and several surveys predict that the Labour will win more than the record 418 seats it secured when former leader of the Labour Party, Tony Blair, ended 18 years of Conservative rule back in 1997. We've of course been seeing scenes from the ground, both Rishi Sunak as well as current opposition leader Keir Starmer reaching out to Indians, visiting temples as well. But what about the Indian population over there? What are the seats where the Indians are in fact in the highest numbers, and what is the percentage of the population covered by the Indians? How much influence will the Indian population of the UK have in this election? Let's take a look. The demographical division in the United Kingdom is such. People who are white constitute 95.5%, Asians are 2.3%, mixed race 1.3%, black people 1.5%, and others 0.4% in the UK. Moving focus to seats with the highest Indian population, Leicester at 6.6, Birmingham at 4.6 and Harrow at 4.5%. As I stated earlier, there were of course a lot of outreach efforts by both Rishi Sunak as well as Keir Starmer when it comes to reaching out to the Indians. There were a lot of temple visits that they had been making for quite a period of time. But of course, let's bring in the experts to decode what is taking place in the UK. With us on the broadcast is Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, former diplomat, as well as Monica Verma, international affairs expert. I'd like to rope in Ambassador Sachdev first. It seems that the Labour has an edge this time around and they're going to wipe out the Tory. This is what the exit polls are predicting. We've seen a significant outreach to the Indian community by both the leaders, Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. What do you make of this, and do you think this indicates how important a demographic the Indians have become in the United Kingdom?
Thank you for having me. I think there are a few very interesting points coming through the elections that is being held in United Kingdom today. Firstly, it was a sudden decision. Typically, in a rainy afternoon, that Rishi Sunak, well drenched, announced his poll much before the time. In fact, the polls were not due till next year. And it's been raining on his prospects for quite some time. I would also like here to mention that if the psephologists are correct and Conservatives are to receive their lowest vote share since 1906, this would be an outlier in the European and much of the Western context, where in fact the right-wing parties have been doing very well. We have all seen European Union Parliament elections last month, where right-wingers were ascendant. We have also seen French elections last week, where right-wingers probably are going to form their first government since Second World War. We have seen similar results in Holland and Netherlands, where right-wing government has come to power. Now, coming to UK, there are various reasons for this being an outlier election for that country. UK has not benefited from a vacuous exit from European Union. There were all sort of expectations as if exiting from European Union would set Britain free on to ascendance, economic, social, and rest of it. That has not happened. COVID had decimated Britain, particularly its service industry, which is the mainstay. And post-COVID, British economy has not received the fillip it was supposed to receive. In fact, Britain was one of the countries in the West which had a technical recession last year. We would also like here to bring in the fact that there were scandals galore in the British Conservative Party, which had five prime ministers since 2019 elections, and none of them was able to uh, do justice to whatever voters' expectations were. Rishi Sunak has been in power for 20 months, and he can be credited with stabilizing the British economy from its doldrums. The inflation has come down from 11% to, I think, 4% now, and but the voters are in no mood to reward him for having performed better than his predecessors. They just don't want conservatives. They're fed up with 14 years of them in the power. As far as South Asians are concerned, I am afraid Labour Party, if it comes to power, might revive its reputation of being soft on British South Asian minorities, many of which are are at odds with their parent countries. Khalistan movement, in particular, uh, might receive a fillip with the Labour sympathizers, talking in terms of liberalism and freedom of speech, etc., etc. Uh, One should say that the manifesto of Labour Party talks about a strategic alliance with India, including a new trade pact. It also talks about deepening ties with India in security, economic, and other domains. So one would have to wait and watch where it takes us. Thank you.
Some of the points you've made across to Monica Verma, who's waited rather patiently. Thank you also for joining us on the broadcast today. Of course, Ambassador Sajdev has spoken about how now Rishi Sunak will be bearing the brunt of a lot of tumult that had taken place in the early years. The Conservatives were in power. It seems that he is now going to be the scapegoat and the Labour will come back to power. But he's also analysed that it would not be too good of a news for the Indian diaspora residing in the UK. We've of course seen how some secessionist movements, particularly the Khalistani movement, has been given a free hand over there. They've been holding referendums, they've been brandishing swords, they attacked our embassy there as well, and nothing much was really done about it. Police protection was in fact given much later, and we've been seeing these visits to the temples, especially by Sunak as well, but especially by the opposition leader Keir Starmer, who is likely to come to power. Do you think all of that was just a farce?
I think I totally agree with what Ambassador Sajdev has put here, and he has given a very, early warning to India that how when a Labour Party will come, the kind of security, challenge it will become for India, especially looking at how other Western countries have been, playing a very hypocritical position when it comes to Khalistani terror. So I think that is definitely a legitimate concern. The challenge for India is to, just divide its attention, is just to distinguish between how Keir Starmer has carried forward his campaign, especially if you look at the last year. In one year, he has tried his best to woo the Indian Hindu community. He in fact went to a temple right ahead after Rishi Sunak went to a temple, and he showed that he is concerned about the Hindu community. It's a considerable vote bank, 1.5% of their total electorate, and 1.9 million live in Britain. So I think that's an important signaling that Keir Starmer has done. In fact, last year there was some summit some sort of event. I don't exactly remember which event, but I remember hearing him on the television, and he was saying that, he looks at India as a formidable great power rising, and India's growth and prosperity story is, having his interest, and he wants to take forward the India-Britain ties to new heights. So that was the kind of, thing that he was saying. And he in fact was grilled by many anchors at that time who asked him the same question, that when it comes to Labour Party's record with India, things have never been nice. They've always been very tricky. There has been, mutual pain on both sides, especially looking at what Jeremy Corbyn did when he introduced a resolution in the parliament on the Kashmir issue. So I think those troubles are going to remain. And for us, as Indians, it's also important because, we will be signing a free trade agreement with them. So it's not that time that someone says something and we just totally buy into it by thinking that what they say is also what they mean. That's not going to be true. There may be a lot of pre-poll signaling of saying that India is nice and we want to, respect the concerns of the Indians. But once finally that government comes into power and they also do the same, like you only discussed, the Khalistani issue and how they have played the freedom of speech card on something so sensitive to India's security concerns. So I think we as a country need to make sure that neither our market access is given to them on our plate. I'm sure the free trade agreement which we have negotiated with them across all the 8-9 rounds, those concerns were taken care of. At the same time, once the Labour Party comes in Britain, they must also understand that the old ties where they could use Kashmir issue to keep India on tenterhooks is not going to work anymore. India is a rising power in the Indo-Pacific. In fact, one of the greatest stories of India-Britain relationship in the last few years has been how they have been able to put the Cold War animosity behind them and focus on the rise of India's story in the Indo-Pacific. So if they want to have a cooperative relationship, and I'm sure India will also have a lot to gain from the British story, looking at they may be a smaller economy than us now, but still they are more developed and they do have access to certain things that we would want. So I think a win-win relationship, a mutually benefiting relationship is possible only and only when India's security concerns are respected and the Labour Party does not give in to its usual vote bank of 1.2 million Pakistani who are a great lobby in the UK. I think if that happens, then we can see that something good is rising on the horizon.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.